Welcome back to my animal education series. Today I'm going to be talking with my new friends from the Toronto Zoo about the Bactrian camel, which is also known as the Mongolian camel. So let's start off by having you introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been with the Toronto Zoo.
My name is Jen Martin. I have been at the Toronto Zoo for just over 20 years now. And the majority of that time I have gotten to work with our herd of Bactrian camels.
How many of these camels live at the Toronto Zoo?
So we currently have 6 Bactrian camels that live here at the Toronto Zoo. We have one bull male, which means he is intact, so he is our breeding male. We have another male who is castrated, so he can live in with our herd of females and not breed because he is related to a couple of them. We have 3 adult females, and we have one baby who is about 4 months old right now.
Where can you find these camels out in the wild?
These animals can be found in Mongolia and northern China, along the eastern Eurasia steppes and the Silk Road in China.
I'll put a graphic right here to show you guys where you can see these camels in their natural environment. And to my own understanding, and based on their natural range, these camels can withstand some pretty cold temperatures. What adaptations do these camels have to withstand those colder temperatures?
Great question. So one of the other places where these camels are found is the Gobi Desert. Yes, this is some of the harshest terrain that can be found on Earth. Their temperature tolerance is said to be anywhere from -40 to +40. So they have quite a few adaptations to them. Starting with, I always like to start at the head and work backwards. So starting with their nostrils. Their nostrils, they can flare or they can completely close up. They can close the nostrils up to prevent sand or snow from blowing into them. Their nostrils also have a little slit that kind of runs down into a little groove that runs down to a slit in their mouth. Anything that runs out of their nostrils will literally run right back into their mouth. This allows them to basically maintain and keep as much moisture in their bodies as possible. They have, their lips are very, what you call prehensile. They're easy to grab at stuff. And this is so that they can munch on like different plant material, and so it's easy for them to grab. This time of year, they get this very, very thick fur coat in. This coat will just get even shaggier all winter long. Come late spring, early summer, they will shed all of this coat and go almost completely bald. And then they will start growing in a thin summer coat, and then that summer coat will completely keep growing back into their winter coat. So, and it's that hair that people can use. So you don't actually have to shave a camel down to get its hair to make wool out of it. It just brushes out naturally. So we brush all of our camels come that time of year. Their feet, when they step down, their feet expand out kind of like you would if you stepped on a pillow. This almost acts as a snowshoe when they're walking on the sand and the snow. They have these callus points on their knees, on their elbows, on their knees, and they also have a very large chest plate. So when they're lying down, all of their weight is resting on this callus areas. The reason for this is so that when they lay on the hot sand, they're not going to burn themselves. They have very long eyelashes to help keep the sand and snow out of their eyes. They have a lot of hair covering their ears for the same reason, to help protect their ears from the sand and the snow. But probably one of their biggest adaptations that you can't even see on them physically is their blood cells. Most mammals have round blood cells. Camels, however, have oval blood cells. The reason for this is that because they can go a long time without food or water, when they are finally able to drink again, they can drink such a large volume of water at once so because of those oval cells, it allows the cells to expand to accommodate that water intake, as opposed to if they just had the round blood cells like we do, those blood cells would literally burst from the water intake.
Thanks to TV shows, movies, and folklore, a lot of people think that camels have a hump full of water. So what is the actual makeup of a camel's hump?
Of course. So, yes, the myth is that camels carry water in their humps. However, it is just that, it's a myth. Camel's hump is actually filled with fat. So how that works is that when a camel's intake food and water, mostly their food, they take all of those nutrients. Their body only excretes what it absolutely has to in terms of waste. So what that means is that their urine is very concentrated with an ammonia smell because they're keeping as much in their body as they need to. Their feces, you can kind of see, I explain them, they look like little chocolate donut holes. They're very small, round, dark balls. And again, because their body is only expelling what it absolutely has to. Everything else, what their body does is they take those nutrients, they convert it into a fat soluble, and they store it in their humps. And that's how, and every camel's humps are a little bit different. We have some of ours that have floppy humps and some that are perfectly straight. With our guys, we find this is strictly a genetic thing. The two with floppy humps, their dad also had a floppy hump, so theirs looks exactly like his. When camels go a long time without food or water, they can then take the fat in their humps, their body breaks it back down, and they can use it as a nutrients to sustain themselves. You will notice either male Bactrian camels when they're in rut, which is kind of their breeding season, so they're not very focused on food, they don't eat a lot. Their humps will sometimes start to sag or deplete because they're using those fat stores. You will also see pictures of wild Bactrian camels, their humps that are much smaller because they are constantly using those fat stores.
What are the main differences between the Bactrian and the dromedary camels?
Well, the biggest difference between the two is that Bactrians, like a capital B, have two humps. Dromedaries, like a capital D, have one hump. Bactrian camels are what's referred to as the Asian variety of camels. Like I said, these guys can be found in Mongolia and China, whereas the dromedary camels can be found more in northern Africa and the Middle East. Bactrian camels are a little bit more cold weather tolerant. Dromedary camels can withstand the cold, but their tolerance is not as high as what a Bactrian camels is. And their heads and their facial features are just a little bit different looking as well.
Out in the desert, there can't be a whole lot for these camels to eat. So what does their diet mainly consist of?
Camels are a herbivore, and it's not just that they're a herbivore, they're also a ruminant, much like cows. Unlike cows that have 4 stomach chambers, however, camels only have 3. So when they find their food, they like to munch pretty much on any greenery that they can find. So because living in a desert setting, sometimes the plants that are available to them are more of the cactus variety. They can be very prickly. So the insides of a camel's mouth is actually designed to be able to eat these prickly plants and not hurt their mouths from eating it.
During my research, I discovered that Bactrian camels are induced ovulators. Could you explain that a little bit for myself and as well for the people watching?
So what that means is that in order for them to actually cycle and to ovulate, they have to be in the presence of a male. Now us as female humans, we have a regular cycle. We have a 28-day hormonal cycle. Camels, however, will only actually ovulate when there is a male around. Now with our group here, because we do have a male bull intact camel nearby, our camels females do actually cycle regularly. We're just not always actively breeding them.
Could you explain to us about the Bactrian camel breeding process? Do only the dominant males breed, or do the females breed with multiple males?
Generally, it's only the dominant male that breeds. When camels form herds, there'll generally only be kind of one more dominant male that's living in with a herd of female. If you have more than one adult male camel, they will fight each other. So here at the Toronto Zoo, we do control our camel breeding. Now, we will only put our male in for breeding between the months of April to the beginning of October. Now, the reason why we do this is because camels have a 13-month gestation, so they are pregnant for 13 months. We want to ensure that our babies have the highest chance of survival as possible, so we always aim for any babies to try and be born during the summer and warmer months.
Also, during my research, I discovered that the younger camels will typically stay with their moms for a pretty long time. How long do the young typically stay with their mothers?
So that really depends on if the baby is a male or a female. Females can realistically stay with their moms their entire life in a herd setting, whereas male Bactrian camels, once they start becoming sexually mature, probably around 3 to 4 years of age, are either going to get moved out or are going to go try and find themselves either a small bachelor herd of camels to hang out with for a little bit, or join another herd of females when they become more dominant.
What animals would try to eat an adult camel, and what other predators might try to eat a younger camel as well?
Now, camels are very large animals. An adult female camel can weigh anywhere from 1,300 to 1,800 pounds on average. Male camels can be upwards of over 2,000 pounds. Babies are obviously a little bit smaller. They're usually around 75 pounds when they're born. So these guys don't have a whole lot of predators. They do share some crossover terrain with snow leopards, different species of wolves. It's very rare that you'd get anything more like an Amur tiger coming down into that area. So you could probably have 1 or 2 snow leopards or a pack of wolves team up to go after one of the babies, but it is very uncommon for the predators to go after a full adult camel. These guys have a very mean kick to them as well as a pretty good bite, so they're pretty good at defending themselves.
What is the current IUCN status of the Bactrian camel?
So that's kind of a little bit of a trick question, because there are 2 different species of Bactrian camels. The camels that you see here with us at the Toronto Zoo, these are a domesticated species. These are a domesticated Bactrian camel. So because they are domesticated, they are able to be housed. They're very commonly, and so their numbers are very high and very common across the globe. However, their cousins that are a different species of camel altogether, the wild Bactrian camels, they are critically endangered, and there's only about 1,000 of them left in the wild.
What are some factors out in the wild that affect the Bactrian camel's populations?
Habitat loss is probably one of the biggest ones for wild Bactrian camels. There has been some areas as well, because they live in such a remote desert locations. In the past, there have been the armies of different countries that have used some of these areas for like bombing and testing sites, which is obviously done, it has been detrimental to their numbers. And also too, because they do live in very harsh climates and terrains, it's not always easy for them to, find foods. So starvation is a cause as well.
How did the camels at the Toronto Zoo come into your care?
So almost all of the camels here at the Toronto Zoo were born here at the Toronto Zoo. Of the 6 that we currently have, 4 were born here. 2 were born in other zoos. Our male Zip, he came to us from African Lion Safari in another part of Ontario. And our female Soraya, who is actually the mom to our baby, she's kind of hanging out down over there. She came to us from a Saint-Félicien Zoo in Quebec. All the rest were born and bred here at the Toronto Zoo. We have an excellent Bactrian camel breeding program and have been very successful with our calves over the years.
Obviously, enrichment is very important for a lot of animal species. So what kind of enrichment do you guys provide for your Bactrian camels?
Well, the biggest form of enrichment that we provide them is living in a typical herd setting like they would in the wild. So them all living together is very enriching for them to interact and being around each other. You know, there is little small forms of play, and so that is a big thing as well. We do have a training program here with our camels. They're all trained to be haltered, so we can actually take them out on walks. So taking them out on regular walks for exercise is a very big form of enrichment for them. We do also provide them with things like brushes for them to brush on. Like I was mentioning before, with their coats, we do also brush them at certain times of year. We like to also offer them what we call browse. So these are sections of tree branches with lots of leaves on them, so they can pull those leaves off, which would mimic a lot more of how they would eat in the wild.
I always like to ask people at the end of videos why they feel teaching people about animals and animal conservation is important. So why do you guys feel that is important?
That is a wonderful question, and I am so glad that you asked. Here at the Toronto Zoo, it is our mission to connect people, animals, and conservation science to help fight extinction. So we're looking here at our Bactrian camels, and yes, these are a domesticated species of Bactrian camels. But like I was saying, their wild cousins are critically endangered with about 1,000 left in them. So it is very unlikely that somebody is going to get the opportunity to go and see a wild Bactrian camel. But here at the Toronto Zoo, you have the opportunity to get fairly up close and see our herd of camels. When our zoo is open, we even offer behind the scenes special wild encounter tours for our animals, our camels, where you can get up close, you can meet them individually, you can learn about them. It's by going through this process that allows people to develop that love and that closeness and that connection with the animals in our care. I find, nowadays, with how wonderful media is and technology, that we're able to get some amazing video and photos of animals in the wild, which is absolutely incredible to see. However, it is very hard to form that true connection when you're watching an animal on your computer or your TV screen. When you have the ability to come to our zoo, to walk around and to see our animals up close, it's a whole other feeling, and it's just amazing how they can make you feel. And it's by doing this, it's by creating the best possible care and environment that we can for our animals, that we're not only creating a love for people to gain of these animals so they can then help do what they can to help save these animals in the wild, but two, if our world was to ever get to a point, and unfortunately it is for quite a few species, we're seeing so many species go extinct now. It is because of zoos around the world that are able to do this captive breeding, that hopefully one day, if we need to, and hopefully we won't, that we will be able to help repopulate the wild with individuals because of the work that zoos and aquariums are doing across the world.
I would like to thank my friends at the Toronto Zoo for helping me film this video. It obviously would not have been possible without them and their amazing support for my channel. But if you guys enjoyed this week's episode, don't forget to leave a big thumbs up down below, subscribe to my channel, and as always, I will see you next week.